So good evening, everybody, on this lovely June evening that we're having. And I'd like to welcome you all this evening. And what we will start with is item number 1 on our agenda, which is a call to order. And item number 2 is the roll call. And so Kingston, I
Present.
see you. Present. I'm present. Stephen?
Present.
Very good. Lucy?
Present.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Present.
And Pat?
Present.
And Larry? We know, I see you there, Larry. And Carolyn? Thank you. And Max isn't here yet, but have you heard anything from him, or is he just running a little late, Mark?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, with that, we'll move to item 3, which is agenda adjustments. Does anyone want to make an adjustment to the agenda? Larry, please. Floor is yours.
I'd like to make a motion to move the discussion on the Finance Committee from 8A and after number 5, which is the Executive Officer's Report. Mark has to go to another meeting, so I'd like him involved in that discussion.
Excellent. Okay, and if there's no objection, we shall do that. And seeing none, so be it. Okay, very good. Now, open time for public expression. Do we have anyone from the public? We have one attendee.
And we have a hand raised from Jim Casper. Mr. Casper, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you very much. So a little bit of background. I know several of you know me, hopefully. I've been involved with fire related stuff in Southern Marin for a number of years and wanted to look at the list of projects that was in the May 27th, I think, MWPA board, the discussion. And in the process, I found it difficult to understand what was going on. And I just want to pass along that I think there could be some clarity in that document. Some of the inconsistencies I found was that, if you will, the beginning table of contents of list of projects didn't exactly correlate with the detail, either in sequence or in content. There were numbers that were different between the detail and the summary. I had some concerns about the way salaries or the cost of personnel was calculated from one agency. There seemed to be different numbers used for essentially the same kind of work. So I just wanted to pass that along. If anybody wants more detail on some of the discrepancies and inconsistencies I found, I'd be happy to share that sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, I don't know if you'd like to respond to that, but before you do, I would also ask the question, would this be more appropriate for one of the other committees rather than the COC to address?
Well, I mean, the important audience is, besides the board of directors would be in an audience for that, but also Ann and I are the ones that are managing that document, and many of the inconsistencies that Mr. Casper pointed out have been identified already, and that's why we haven't posted it on our website. We've been spending a lot of time in the tables aligning that information. So I hope our next rendition, because we did have approval from the board to correct those typographical, semantic, clerical type errors that were in the document. And so we have been spending quite a bit of time fixing that. And Ann's been, like I said, had her nose in those tables quite a bit. So I hope the next version will be, have less inconsistencies. And then we have learned from the 21-22 build to how we're going to improve the 22-23 build. And one of the things is wherever you have duplicative data entry, you open yourself to error, and that's what's been going on. Is it gets entered one way, it's a typo. You type it right the first time, then you type it wrong the second time. We're going to be building a system that you only type it once, and it populates where it needs to be populated elsewhere. So I hope that helps you out, Mr. Casper, and thank you for pointing that out to us.
And Jim, please feel free to come back to us next month or whenever you see the next copy of it, if you have more concerns. Thank you. I don't believe there's any more public comment. And with that, we'll move to item 5, which is the executive officer's report.
Good evening, everybody, and I hope you've been enjoying the beginning of your summer. It's nice that we've gotten into some cooler weather patterns after how hot it was there for a while. To touch on the scheduling conflict that Larry mentioned, I am going to be presenting to the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council Members tonight, MCCMC. So much easier to say MCCMC. So. And I've got them on a holding pattern for me until about 6:30. So, but I think we'll be able to get through the vast majority of our agenda by then. I'm looking forward to presenting to the MCCMC. I think it'll be an informative presentation for them. As mentioned, Ann and I have been nothing but the work plan, and both correcting the issues that the clerical issues that were in the work plan, but also and meeting with each of the member agencies to start getting product going. We've been talking about what we want to get done. Now it's time to start getting what we want to get done. So Ann has been focusing on our member agencies and helping them with their local projects as well as the core projects, so we can start getting some work out there on the ground. And that's allowing me to start focusing on more strategic items, such as getting our communication strategy up and running, filling in the gaps that we have in our financial policies, and our records retention, exciting stuff like records retention policy, and making sure that all our documents are stored in legal fashions and with full transparency included. So that's where I've been focusing a lot of my time. You may have noticed that we had an issue identified by NBS, which is our tax levy third-party administrator, that they did not think the number of low-income senior tax exemption applications was at the level that it should be. So we made a very hard push to publicize that to either through Facebook, the Marin IJ. We asked all of our board members to use their communication strategies. Mimi Willard from Cost is helping with Nextdoor to send that messaging out. We've blasted it out in as many ways as we have, and based on the number of phone calls that we're receiving about questions, or if I can have an application sent to me, our message is getting out there. So it is identifying where we need to improve next season, next exemption season, to get that word out a little bit better earlier. And then the last thing I have for tonight is the transition of the chair and the vice chair for the Citizens Oversight Committee. Next month, it will be the time for our vice chair to move into the chair's position, and then have an election for the vice chair, since we have it built into the bylaws that the vice chair automatically moves into the chair. And it also may be a good time, and we can talk about this if needed, to do the drawing of straws that is built into the bylaws for the terms of our COC members. It's not quite time to do that yet, but if we're already dealing with the transition of a chair and a vice chair, it might be a good time to draw the straws. I just need to figure out how we draw straws virtually. I kind of have an idea. Yeah, I was thinking of popsicle sticks and drawing a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on it, and just kind of holding like this and going down the list, and you get to pick which one. And I go, okay, that's the long one, and okay, this is a short one. So unless someone else has a better idea how to do that, that might be the way we go.
Well, you could put all our names in a hat. How would this work? No, you would write out a bunch of tickets with the terms on them, and one by one we would say, okay, Mark, draw another one, and then you would go to Lucy, and you would pull out these tickets. Anyway, it's just a thought.
That is, it's, okay. And any more ideas come out, I'm happy to entertain them because
Yeah.
Mark, I think there's a lot of surplus bingo machines out there.
All right.
I'll talk to Stan Rowan. That's my contact in the bingo world.
Good, good.
Are we still allowing people to volunteer for a certain term length?
Yeah,
We yeah, absolutely. And that would be step one prior to
I
drawing
would
straws,
think,
right?
yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So my intent would be to actually, I mean, typically our meetings for the COC have not included the staff report, but for this, I would include a staff report that spells out the process. So we have it in writing what that process is. And so we go in a meeting with the understanding that, okay, step A is if anyone is volunteering, then step B, this is how either the drawing from the hat or the drawing of short popsicle sticks will go.
Question.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the status on the website?
I am about 0 for 4 right now, reaching out to web vendors, and we have about 6 or 7 more that we've reached out to see if they would be a vendor that I have some people saying yes. It's just a matter of when they are available to do it. And the earliest availability I've had so far is September, and I want to move faster on the website than September.
Thank you.
thank you, Mark. Are there any more questions, comments? And seeing none, we'll move on to item 8A, which is, I'll just read it, financial review. It's a recommendation to discuss the framework of the Citizens Oversight Committee financial review and create an ad hoc subcommittee to create and recommend to the full committee a process and framework for the financial report. And with that, I'll turn it over to Larry. Thank you, Larry.
Okay, I think I'll start out with the easy part, and that is, what is the COC supposed to be doing? And if we go back to one of the organizing documents, we're supposed to be reporting on the spending of the parcel tax funds and the previous year's work program to evaluate consistency with the tax measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into 3 parts. I'm going to go quickly through bullet points for each one, and then we can go back to each one individually. But you know, it all kind of ties together, so this way you can hear it once first, and then we can go back and have our discussions or get comments on that. But you know, in that particular mandate that we have, you know, if I frame them as, you know, just simple yes or no questions, you know, did the MWPA spend the parcel tax proceeds in accordance with the parameters set in Measure C? Did the MWPA fund the programs in accordance with the parameters set in Measure C? You know, are the MWPA members using the local return distributions in accordance with the parameters set in Measure C? Was the use of the funds used effectively? Is the MWPA providing adequate transparency to the public? So, you know, those are kind of like what I consider the 5 absolute things that we need to do, you know, in its most simplistic sense. So give that some thought for a moment. And what I will do is, you know, there are objective measures and there are also subjective ones. In the more objective ones, if we go back to the JPA agreement, you know, we know that there are things like shall not incur more than 10% of the annual budget in debt. You know, 60% of the tax measure proceeds should go towards core program functions, which are but not limited to, you know, things like vegetation management, wildfire detection, you know, evacuation plans and alert grants, public education. At least 80% of the revenue generated in, you know, for vegetation management by each operational zone should be allocated within, you know, that respective zone. Defensible space and fire resistance structure evaluations, mitigation of fire threats will be funded by 20% of the tax proceeds. You know, within the defensible space program, you know, there's an abatement program which shall be funded with 2% of the total tax measure proceeds. Then you have local specific wildfire prevention efforts, which will be funded by 20% of the tax measure proceeds and allocated properly by revenue raised in their respective tax areas. And then you have administrative costs of not more than 10% will be budgeted to each program. So those are the things which, can be measured, arithmetically, and there may be other things that, you might want to take a look at. Now, I don't know how much thought you've given to what kind of tools you need, but at a bare minimum, if, I were to look at, this type of information, I would need the income statement for the whole fiscal year, starting from July 1st of last year, all the way up to June 30th of 2021. We want a balance sheet at June 30th, 2021, which is a snapshot in time. And then the expense detail for the whole fiscal year as well, ending June 30th, 2021. So when I talk about expense detail, what it does is that I can recreate every one of the income statement items or balance sheet items that you see in the reports that go out each month to the board. So while we're not trying to do the auditor's job of trying to determine, the actual details in, and whether they're stuck in the right bucket or not, we certainly want to be able to objectively measure that if a program area says that it spent X and it is within those thresholds, that we have supporting documentation that can support it, and we can answer yes, for example, to one of the questions, that I might have raised above. So I'll pause here for a moment and actually turn it back over to Mark and see if, he has anything he'd like to add to that.
No, just I really appreciate Larry's experience in this, since this is the COC's first endeavor down this path. The MWPA will be going down its first audit ever. So it's new territory, and it's great to have someone that has the experience that Larry does to ask the right questions and help point us in the right direction.
Yes, I'd like to second that. And we have a question from Stephen and then Lucy. Stephen, please, the floor is yours.
Sure. Larry, since the organization got started about 3 months before the beginning of the stated period that you mentioned, should we not in this first examination include all months in which the organization was in existence?
Mark, do we have a long fiscal year?
So the organization was not funded until July 1. We were in existence from when the tax measure was passed and until that, which, so officially it was late March, early April, where they said, okay, the tax measure passed, it's time to move forward and with building the MWPA. But we received no funding, which was the bridge loan from the County of Marin, until July 1. So no expenditures were done until July 1. So I think we're comfortable, or we're safe with that July 1 to June 30.
Okay, so there was no financial activity prior to July 1 of 2020, is what you're saying.
And however, what does it hurt to add April, May, June to that?
Well, if we did that, I would probably separate out the two, because we'd still want it to match up with the financial statements plus the period that the auditor is reviewing. But what we can do is, because there are probably very few entries, and they're going to be expenditures because there was no income at that point, and most of it's probably administrative. You can certainly drop them in the buckets, but it would also be very skewed in all likelihood, because it mostly was administrative up to that point.
Yeah, it was, administrative and building,
Yeah, I don't, if I were to think about what probably happened in those first few months, I don't think any of it was probably programmatic.
No.
Yeah, so we would probably, I'm thinking out loud here, we'd probably need to review the fiscal year and then add it on as kind of treating it as an addendum almost, so that you can show that those expenses, even though incurred before the beginning of this fiscal year, were really part of the program items for this fiscal year.
Except that, what about any grants to Fire Safe Rand for educational programs? Were there any, and would that be included in some programmatic aspects of what we're up?
There were none prior to July 1.
And the income probably didn't start coming in until after November, because it would have been the first tax the first property tax payment.
Well, we did have a bridge loan from the county. And then when that first tax dump came, that's when we paid back that bridge loan.
Yeah, that loan wouldn't be income, it'd be debt.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, there's no decisions that need to be made tonight other than to, determine who is interested in serving on a subcommittee to, begin this process.
Rebecca has had her hand up. Lucy put hers down. Rebecca, please.
You put your hand down, Lucy? Darn. So actually, my comments are probably better made in committee, because what I was thinking is having examples of the details that we're going to be, not the details, having examples to say, here's what the money was spent on, I think would be extremely helpful, not only to discuss within the committee so we can understand where the money's going and how it's being spent, but then also to be able to pick out good examples to give to the public to say, in each region, here's an example of money that's being spent.
To that point, we got a sample from Mark on, I think it was one of the Nevada School Board measures, one of their COCs. And, we would probably also need a subcommittee to create the basic structure for what we want to report. And what, the type of content that would go into that. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that report, that might give you some ideas. I'm sure we don't want to do this, but, I have seen another extreme where, local cities with very small tax measures have a COC, but they don't have a big formal report like that. They just basically do the work and, report out to their city council.
And just for clarification, it was Rebecca that sent me the Nevada schools that I forwarded on to the rest of the committee. So thank you, Rebecca.
And I did read it because I'm in Nevada and it was my money. So, and it was, it's really well done. It does have a lot of examples of how the money, I don't know that we need to go the extent that they did, but it was interesting that a town did do that. It was the school district that did it. That was my hand.
Thank you, Rebecca. Pat, you have your hand raised, please.
Just a quick question, and not that I'm distrustful, but I wonder, this afternoon, I happened to print out last year's San Rafael project list. And as I was looking through that project list, I was wondering in my mind on a couple of things. I wonder if this actually got done. And I wonder if we do any auditing like that, or do we simply take the word of, if the money was spent, we assume it was actually done.
I don't know how the MWPA does it, but a city council usually has to accept the project.
Yeah.
So Public Works would come back and then say, this project was done, and then they give a whole report on it. But a lot of times that also appears on the consent calendar.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
and I think I could fill in a little bit of that. because I have that same concern. I want to make sure that projects that are, and specifically local mitigation projects that were said that were on the calendar or within that budget were actually expended, and that the money just didn't pass through the MWPA and then the project wasn't done. So what we built into the financial policy, disbursement policy, is that at the end of the year, our treasurer will meet with the financial personnel from each of the member agencies and see where we need to see the revenue from the MWPA entering into their financial system, and then the disbursements for projects. And then they may decide, okay, for projects 1 and 2, we had the time and resources to get it done. But project 3, we weren't able to get it done. It was budgeted for $25,000. And so they'll need to show us how they put it into a reserve account to roll it over into the next fiscal year to exercise either that project or apply those monies to another project.
I know.
Thank you, Mark. That was the kind of thing I was reminded that there's supposed to be a garden at the San Rafael Civic Center, and it went through my mind. Is there a garden at the San Rafael Civic Center? I don't think so yet, but probably the money's rolling over into the next year. So,
but we will require, and you're absolutely right that this should be something that you guys need to be looking at. And but we have built it into our financial policies that we do have an accounting for that.
Yeah, and I think it would be sort of nice to, even if it's just spot checking, I would like to go on a field trip or two and see work that's actually been done. I think that would also be helpful to us in figuring out how we're going to present it to the public, to be able to know in the weeds how our money was actually spent. Thank
Carolyn,
you.
Thank you, Pat. Carolyn, please.
How does the audit fit into this? This is something that we're going to get before, right? Before we prepare our report. Would that cover some of these questions about disbursements and making sure things were done?
The audit is, and Larry, please fill in any gaps. The audit is more about the financial stability of the organization and our financial practices, not necessarily how the money was spent in comparison to the tax ordinance.
I see.
Yeah, that's correct. To backtrack for a moment to what, Pat was talking about, we had discussed several meetings ago that, there was always the possibility that if we did not rely solely on the attestations that would come from the individual cities, that this committee might have to break up into smaller parts to actually look at, what the cities would do, whether, each agency would do with their allocation, whether it be spot checking it as you've suggested, or to go to all 25 members. But that does tie to, one of the questions that, I had read earlier about what we do. And it's, we do need to be assured that the money was spent in accordance with the tax measure.
Carolyn, thank you for your question. Larry, thank you for that. And Rebecca, please.
So one of the things I noticed on the Novato School District one is they had a spreadsheet that showed all of the projects that were underway for the measure that they were reporting out on. And there was a column at the end for, was this project completed in this fiscal year? So if we did the route of having a spreadsheet that had all the projects listed, we could put that information there, which would be easy enough to keep track of even going forward if the projects were completed in that fiscal, or in that. We're reporting in fiscal years, right? Yes.
Yeah, we do have that spreadsheet. So
Yeah. Add the
we
column, not there.
just add a column, right?
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And Larry, please.
Oh, yeah. And Mark, it wouldn't be left upon the COC to organize and get the attestations, correct? You would get that from, you would be going out to each of the member agencies.
Correct. That's our duty. That's our responsibility.
Mhm. Okay.
Great. Is there any more comment? I think we are looking for volunteers for the Finance Ad Hoc Subcommittee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I see Stephen, Rebecca. I'm not sure if you have a question or you're saying yes. I'll assume it's a yes. I was going to assume it's a yes.
And just a reminder, I'm sure you guys are already thinking of this. The magic number that we can't exceed is 4.
Right, right. Kingston, you had started on the committee. Did you want to not continue? You're on mute. You're on mute, Kingston.
Yeah, I'm overcommitted in a couple other areas right now. I'm on the COC for TAM, and learning a great deal there, but it's a much more advanced process, and a much bigger agency. All right, but so I've got some other things that are driving me crazy, so I'm gonna stand back and let Larry run with it. So.
Okay, with those words, thank you so much, Kingston. So with that, we should move on to back to item number 6, which is the consent calendar.
Well, since the bylaws really don't dictate who can appoint an ad hoc subcommittee, we really should have a motion second of who the committee consists of, and then have a vote.
Very good. Stephen, are you making the motion? Okay, we have a motion. Did I see Kingston is seconding it?
And just so that I'm clear, it is Larry, Stephen, and Rebecca.
Larry, Stephen, Rebecca.
And I wonder if I could say, when we get to the point of doing a communications committee on this, of how we're going to present the information, I would like to serve on that.
Great, thank you, Pat.
I wouldn't mind doing that myself. Okay.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
Do we have to vote?
Do we need a vote, Mark, at this point?
I think we're good with everyone saying aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you for those who volunteered.
Yes, very much so. It's a big job. We all understand that, and we appreciate that. Then we will now move on to item number 7, which are committee reports. Oh, I should ask for public comment before we go forward. So any public comment? And seeing none, we shall move forward to item
And actually, number 6 for consent calendar.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we haven't done the minutes yet, right?
Yeah, so that's in the consent calendar, and I would like to say that before you guys make a motion for the consent, I did receive a correction for the minutes from Pat, and so we will make those changes once the motion has been approved, and when we post it, we'll post the amended minutes.
Well, I had some feedback on the minutes too.
Please, Carolyn.
Okay, let me just bring it up. Minor points. Oops, no, this is the wrong document. Okay, well, maybe I can just remember them. There's a reference to Attorney Acevedo, and I thought that actually it was a CEQA matter, I think. So I was assuming it was the other lawyer, Attorney Teller. So, but you guys would know for sure which one it was, but
I can go back to the minutes and take a look and double check.
okay. Let's see, here we go. All right, sorry to be, I guess I should have sent my comments to Mark. I didn't realize that. Now, Larry Minicus is quoted as saying that the MMWD Biodiversity Integrated Fire Fuels Plan is a good sense of what this plan will look like. That is, I think it's maybe the manual that Ann Krelock is working on. I'm not sure, but was that correct, Larry? I didn't think that was a model for any of the plans that are being generated now.
No, I was referring to, is it Pinnacle? Is that the organization that is going to prepare the document, that prepared the document for MMWD? And I was just saying that it's a good way to see how they do their work.
Well, that's it. That's what I thought. It's Panorama, but
Panorama, thank you.
Yeah, that might be reworded there. It's just, it shows the quality of their work, I think is what he's trying to say.
Kind of what our document might look like is what I was saying, is that here's a model, and since it's done by Panorama for similar reasons, we can take a look at that and get sort of a sense of where we're headed here. That's what I was referring, Carolyn.
Okay, well, that was just, I didn't think that was quite right, but okay.
So we can make that adjustment, and we will confirm which attorney should be quoted in the minutes, and then add that to Pat's comments that she sent for us.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, well, with the amended comments, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Stephen, thank you. Pat has seconded it. And all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Okay, so thank you so much on that. So now we go on to committee reports, item number 7, and it's the monitoring assignment reports. Does anyone have monitoring assignment reports that they would like to provide this month?
We didn't have ops or ATAC, so
Yeah,
nothing to report there.
right.
I attended both the board meeting and the executive committee and whatever meetings there were, but nothing really nothing jumped out. I took notes, but I read them over this morning and nothing worth bringing up to the group.
Oh, thank you so much, Pat. And I caught part of it as I was traveling between AT&T towers out in the middle of nowhere. So I did get bits and pieces of the board meeting. Well, with that, we will move to item 7B, which is ESP Environmental Group Ad Hoc Subcommittee Report. And with that, it's a recommendation to receive an update on the development of goals and plans pertaining to the review of ESP and other environmental groups dealing with the MWPA. And who would like to open that?
I'll be speaking.
Thank you. Keese.
I'd like to open this as we have a report and recommendations for you. I would like to open this with a personal comment. Is that I've always considered myself an environmentalist, but after observing several meetings of the ESP wildfires, I'm a much better educated environmentalist, and I want to thank you. And you, I think you have some fabulous best operating practices for everyone to follow. Having said that, let me go back through where we are right now. As a background, just to remind everybody, our subcommittee objectives were to assess and determine the level of public transparency between the MWPA and the ESP partnership. And secondly, to provide recommendations to the COC and MWPA regarding the ESP's relationship with the MWPA and the public at large. Over the last 3 months, we've reviewed the origins, past activities, communications, etc., between the parties since the inception of Proposition C in 2020. We also requested additional information from Ms. Belcole, chair of the ESP, which was in turn provided to us. Mark Brown and Bruce Goins were interviewed to determine their views on the relationship. Next are our findings. Number one, the MWPA and ESP entered into in quotes, informal handshake agreement, end quotes, before the passage of Measure C to collaborate in development of environmental best practices for the agency. That agreement included placement of the ESP icon on the MWPA website. Number two, it is unclear whether all the entities, particularly the government entities that are listed under the ESP umbrella, have made a formal commitment to be part of the association, or whether staff have merely attended some meetings. Number three, neither the public nor the media were notified of the initial agreement. Number four, neither the public nor the media have participated as of right in any of the multiple meetings of ESP or its subcommittees during the last year. Notice of all upcoming meetings has been in effect by invitation only. No notice of upcoming meetings was provided to the media. Number five, the information provided behind the ESP partnership icon is incomplete and out of date. Meeting schedules are for August and September 2020. No updated mention or notice of upcoming meetings nor explanation of ESP's future plans are provided. Six, the record, e.g., and for example, agendas, minutes, recordings of past meetings is incomplete. Video recordings and other information regarding previous meetings are only available upon request from Ms. Cole. Not all meetings were recorded. Number seven, ESP has submitted 2 iterations of its proposed best practices for review by the various MWPA committees and the board of directors as of June 2021. Therefore, we believe ESP has completed as its promised work effort. Number 8, ESP has indicated that it wishes to continue to provide continuing advice and assistance to MWPA for the foreseeable future. Our recommendations, there are 2. Okay, number 1, MWPA should develop a partnership icon. While much has been accomplished in the collaboration between the parties, the public has been left out of the process. Transparency has been lacking, and we believe must be restored in all future dealings between the parties. The following are our recommendations for consideration and approval by the COC. Number 1, MWPA should remove the ESP partnership icon from its website. This should be done in a timely fashion, for instance, over the next 2 to 3 months as the new promised website is created. A new icon, Partners, should be placed on the website. Number 2, any special interest group, including ESP, would be invited to place a link to its website behind this icon. Number 3, MWPA must approve any special interest group to be placed behind the icon. This approach would avoid the anomaly of a private group operating in effect like a standing committee of a public agency, which supports an appearance of both special interest, political influence, and favoritism towards ESP by the agency. ESP could develop its own website and not comply with any formal Brown Act compliance. Transparency would therefore no longer be an issue, as ESP would be treated as any other special interest group with full access to MWPA. Our second recommendation, alternative recommendation, is if there's continued use of the ESP partnership icon on the website. This is if ESP stays up there. Should ESP and the MWPA continue to believe that theirs is a special relationship that deserves to be continued as is, we believe full public transparency can only be fully observed by 1, formalizing their agreement in a written memorandum of understanding, 2, ESP developing a formal corporate presence, for instance, a 501c3 corporate entity. Number 3, ESP and the MWPA fully comply with all Brown Act requirements for what is in essence another standing committee of the agency. The subcommittee defers to the COC for final determination of the appropriate recommendation to the MWPA. We believe the partners icon is the preferred alternative. That's it. For myself and for Lucy Dilworth and for Stephen Keese. we'll give you a written copy of this. We can mail it out to Mark and he can send it out.
Yes, I'd appreciate it. I think we need some time to digest this. I mean, we're gonna act on this as a group, I guess.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the intent, is to let you think about it right now.
Well, I have one thought to throw out, which is, I think ESP is really evolving right now, and the arrival of Anne, you know, is a factor involved. You know, we've got the environmental consultants now, and she's preparing a manual. I think it's kind of unclear what is going to be the fate of our document, the ESP document. I mean, I shouldn't say our, but the work product. So maybe it'll be a little more clear next month when we meet again, because.
Well, let me answer that a little bit. I mean, in ESP's words, they're having a meeting tomorrow, and they have the latest iteration of the best practices. But they had another document, another Word document, as part of the invitation, and it's ESP going forward, and it's nothing is approved. But this is where I think that their thoughts are and where they want to go. And I'll quote it: initial thoughts on where the ESP partnership will focus efforts in the coming year. We agree on 1 meeting of ESP Partnership Monthly. 3 ESP committees remain intact, and use ESP monthly meetings to further these efforts. And these are the 6 efforts. 1 is present ecologically sound practices to MWPA committee, member groups, evaluators, and other interested parties. Number 2, review select MWPA work plans early in the process. Number 3, review MWPA educational materials as they are developed. Number 4, schedule in-person tours of project sites to support mutual learning and application of best practices. Number 5, refine practices as needed based on further experience and input. And number 6 is continue building awareness about importance of wildland vegetation treatment, projects, carbon management, and defensible space. It looks to me like ESP has a very substantial role that they want to play going forward.
Well, my impression is this is to be worked out, really. I mean, I guess, you know,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some meetings, and well, maybe Anne can speak to this, but my sense is that it's going to be kind of merged into the manual, perhaps. I don't know.
Talk about the
Yeah, they have. You haven't presented what you were, you know, what you guys came up with to them yet, have you?
No, I thought we're a subcommittee. We're
Right. So it would find. Well, you know, it's possible that we could sit down and work everything out. I mean, yeah, there has been some vagueness about the status of the group. And it was an informal birth of the organization. And, you know, people have worked hard. They've done their best. Maybe Belle hasn't kept the website up to the extent she should have. But, you know.
She doesn't have a website. It's on.
Well, I mean, updating the MWPA website with our meeting schedule. I mean, I think there was an intent to have it be public. But yeah.
Carolyn, if I may add, Mark did speak to that point a couple of meetings ago, and that it's really his responsibility, and he's overloaded, and he just can't get everything up that needs to get up at this point. Mark, did I say that pretty appropriately?
I mean, that is accurate, but I try to post what I can. If I'm asked to post it, then I post it. And I do want to, and I think Kingston, this may be your intent. Since we didn't have your recommendations as part of the agenda, and we didn't have a vote of what we wanted to do or what the COC would like to do with your recommendations, we really can't move it tonight procedurally. So it would be, I think that was your intent, right, Kingston? Kind of.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Get it out there and then follow it up with all the formalities. It's,
That's that. I just wanted to make sure I was reading between the lines properly.
no, it's a lot to chew on. I know that.
Right. May I make a suggestion that what is asked of ESP is a formal response to each of the points for the next meeting? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I
Is
mean,
everyone- right.
we haven't.
Larry, please.
Okay.
Carolyn, finish and then Larry,
Oh,
please.
well, I was just gonna say, I don't know what the protocol would be to share with them something we haven't approved yet, but, I think we could say, this report has been made and it's under consideration, and we'd like to have you give a chance to respond.
Well,
Yeah, so
Larry, you're a principal, so I mean,
Sure.
why don't you, we'll get the written document to Mark, and then you can go back and you guys can discuss whatever you'd like to do. It's not, it's your call.
Right. Very good. Larry, please.
Since this has already been introduced in a public meeting, you should be able to just take it straight back to them, and rather than do the meeting serially, we can treat the next meeting on an agenda item like in a workshop type setting.
Yes.
So that way, they can respond to it real time, and we can, have a discussion with them.
Good.
Might even invite Bell Cole to be part of that meeting, depending on how everyone feels about that. Stephen, thank you. With that, as you said, there's really no action here. You're just giving a report this evening.
That's correct.
And Mark, one question I would have, once we take some sort of vote on this, would this need to go to before the board as well?
Yeah, this would be a recommendation from the COC to the board for this type of action.
I just wanted to be clear. I thought so, but I wanted to be clear on that because it really was kind of informal the way we're going about it. So that helps a little bit on formality. And with that, Kingston, thank you so much. Are there any more questions? And seeing none, we will move on to item 8B, which is meeting date changes.
Let's double check to make sure we don't have any public comment on this item.
Thank
We
you
do
so
have
much.
we do have a member of the public this time.
Yes. And seeing none, my apologies, public. And seeing none, we shall move on to item 8B, which is meeting date changes. And the recommendations is due to the holidays in November and December to move the COC meeting dates a week back, earlier, I should say, to November 17th and December 15th. And with that, open for discussion. And well, let's do it this way. Okay. Do we have Pat? Your hand went up too, I think, almost at the same moment. Was that correct? Okay. So Stephen moves, Pat is second. Would everyone please raise their hands if they're in favor? All in favor, please. Any opposed? Seeing none. So moved. Hey, Mark, you're gonna get out of here.
But Larry, I have a question.
Oh, Rebecca, please.
So December, we're moving it from when to when?
1 week earlier, so that we avoid being on the same week as major holidays.
So 15.
Right. And I would like to say this, there's always the option. We don't have to have 12 meetings. I mean, there's always the option if people find that December week, because people get busy, we can always delay a meeting, call off a meeting. So just keep that in the back of your minds. We're a citizen committee.
Okay, so we're going to meet on the 15th in December.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
As on the agenda, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And with that, I think we're all approved. So we will move on. Oh, and public, any comment from the public? And seeing none, we'll move on to information items. At this time, does anyone have any information items they would like to offer that weren't on the agenda? And seeing none, we will close item number 9. Number 10, committee member requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests? Rebecca, please.
So are we going to put Mark's stuff on the agenda for next time, the drawing of straws or whatever, and the movement of vice chair to chair and new vice?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Right, straws. Okay, anything, Lucy, please.
I would like to discuss whether or not we make a formal request to the agency that we be placed as a standing item on the agendas of the Executive Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Operations Committee, so that should we have a comment to make, we could do so at those meetings. So I'll discuss that next time.
Lucy, did you also need to include the ATC or no?
No, well, we can discuss that, but in fact, I was thinking that it would be those three committees.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what were
Okay.
they? The executive committee, the finance, and the operations?
Yeah.
Very good.
And I took that note down, Lucy.
Good, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mark. With that, we move to item 11, adjournment.
Gee, it's only an hour.
Yay, let's adjourn.
Yeah, hey, Mark.
For a second.
Hey, why don't you guys, hey, come join
choreographed.
me at the MCCMC.
Right,
Right. Keep going.
Next
Keep
time.
going, Ken.
Send us the link, Mark.
right.
Go to
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Right.
Good evening.
Go to